Hello, everyone, and welcome to RBCM at Home. My name is Kim Goff. I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. I hope you are finding ways to take care of yourselves however you need to do it. I'm coming to you from my home on the territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people in the Esquimalt. In this series, we are talking with staff from the museum who've been asked to work at home about their work and about their research. Today we have the Royal BC Museum's curator of entomology, Dr. Joel Gibson. Throughout his career, both training and working as an entomologist, Joel has collected insects from around the world. Last week, he showed us how to collect some insects in our own backyard. And today he'll reveal what he's found. So Joel, before we see what you collected, can you briefly review the kinds of traps or what you did in your backyard?
Well, while I've been home, working hard and not on meetings and sharing things with people online, I've taken the time to kind of go out in my yard and see what I can see. So I have a Malaise trap, which is sort of the big inside out net, which is kind of funny. I've actually seen online, people are always developing new versions of it, but it's basically the idea of a big inside out tent. There's also pitfall traps, which is just a hole in the ground that you put a cup in that whatever falls in will tend to stay there if you put water or ethanol in the bottom of it. And then sweeping and observing. Sweeping is just the butterfly net, the kind of classic old image you have of someone running through a field with a net. That is really still a good way to collect. And then observing. I've been taking lots of pictures, and I've been just kind of stopping and noting and asking my family, okay, what do you think that is? What do you see? So that's a big part of collecting too.
Great. And is your family helping you out? Are they assisting? Are they making notes for you or sharing their observations?
We try to get out for a walk, and sometimes the question comes up, Dad, is this a work walk or is this a walk? And I'm like, well, if I see anything, I'm not going to stop and not stop and look at it. I'm not going to ask, what do you think? I'm not going to say, hey, do you notice that cool color pattern on the legs? So they all tend to be work walks. And sometimes, like, my wife is way better at finding beetles than I am. So yes, they definitely help.
So last week you set up you set up a pitfall trap, the Malaise trap, and you did some sweeping as well.
Pan traps was the other
one. Could you say it again?
A pan trap, which is just a really white or bright yellow shiny bowl that will collect a lot of things on a sunny day.
And how long did you leave those out before you went out and collected from them?
The Malaise traps, the ones I'm going to look at today, there's a video, we're going to look through the results. The Malaise trap was up for about 5 days, which was a good stretch. And it happened to be a nice sunny stretch, so that was a good time. The pitfall traps were also out. The funny thing is the pan traps we're going to show you were probably just out in the sun for about 3 or 4 hours. That's it. So it's kind of interesting to see how much you can get in what seems like a short period of time.
All right, so I'm going to share the video that you and your daughter put together for us. Oh, and I will make sure I share sound. We'll see the screen here. All right.
So let's take a look. At one of our pan traps. As you can see here, we got a couple of things, some bees and some flies, and even a spider looks like it's crawled in there. And the yellow one has some slightly different ones. So these will be great. And what we'll do is we'll take these, we'll put them into ethanol, and then we can look under the scope and find out what species we found. Okay, so let's take a look and see what we got in our pitfall trap. So if we pull this up, there's going to be a bit of dirt in there, but there's also quite a bit of stuff. So we dump this in here. We got a big spider. We got lots of tiny little collembolans, and not a lot of beetles this time, but usually you will get a lot of beetles. Okay, let's take a look and see what we got in our Malaise trap. We tap here, get everything down there that's flying around. You can see here, we got quite a few flies and bees, quite a bit of variety there. And we pick these out, we'll have to dry them, but there's quite a bit of diversity that we got from things flying around in the backyard.
All right. So we saw the results of 3 of those traps. Were there, was one trap more successful, Joel, than any of the
Um,
others?
it's funny. Everyone kind of gets used to what they're used to. I've always been used to working with Malaise traps because I work with flies. So I tend to have a little bit more of a knack for those. So I try to set it up so that it's angled towards the sun and it kind of has a breezeway. So as things fly through, they'll get caught. So I found that Malaise trap was actually pretty good for a backyard. Pitfall traps, I always tend to put them in the wrong place. So those pitfall traps should have had more in them. And if I were to go out with a really good spider person or a really good beetle expert, they probably would have said, "Oh no, Joel, try putting it over here," and there would have been a lot more in those pitfall traps. So the Malaise was successful, but that always tends to be the case for me.
Great. So the next step, you then took these insects inside, and for the ones that were in the water, how do you dry those out?
You can't, like, out of water is not so good because if you were
Mm.
to just dry those on a paper towel, they'll kind of shrivel up. And it can also kind of get moldy because they're wet. So what I did with those is you take them out one at a time and put them into ethanol, and it'll be like 30% ethanol, maybe 70% ethanol, which is enough in it that there's not going to be any mold or bacteria grow in it. There's too much ethanol. And then out of that, then you can dry them on a paper towel a lot of the time. Some of them are really, really sensitive and tiny, and those we have to have a special device to dry off the ethanol. So those ones I just left in the ethanol. And spiders, we leave in ethanol because if you try to dry them out, they just crumple up and turn to dust. So you have to leave those in ethanol when you find them.
I feel like I saw a video or heard a talk once about bumblebees and maybe using like a little hair dryer to
Yep.
refluff them. Does that sound right?
Yeah, because sometimes if people are doing some of the big studies to study like large numbers of bumblebees, they might collect a few hundred at a time in one of those like a big pan trap or in a Malaise trap. And if they want to take them out and dry them, there's two things. Either you can put them in a bag and kind of shake them up with paper towels to try to dry them off. Some people will use paint brushes to like brush off all the ethanol from them. And then sometimes you can put them in a jar with a really low hair dryer that will dry off all the ethanol, but also fluff out all the hair. Because when you fluff out the hair, you can see the color and then you can identify them.
Wow, lots of steps. So mostly you just had that one trap with water and you kept those in ethanol. Everything else was, oh no, I guess they all had some alcohol or like liquid in the
Everything
bottom,
else
didn't
is
they?
already in ethanol, so I can pull those out. And some of the stuff I also collected from a net, I'll usually just pin those right from dry. So those ones didn't have to go in ethanol. So.
Okay. So next you looked at these under scope, is that right? Was this a museum quality scope, or is this something that people at home might be able to buy or have if they were interested in looking closely?
I even have, as I call them, the nerd goggles, which are just sort of mounted little magnifying glasses, which are usually pretty good for me to pin stuff. I can put those on while I'm trying to put the pins through things. You can look at them under a scope, and anything scope at home you have. Some people can even get phone mounted or computer mounted USB microscopes.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those can work pretty well for getting it. And the video you're going to see later, I actually shot that with my phone. It does have an extra little lens I found. I actually got it as a gift at a meeting once. And it's just a little lens you can attach to your phone so you can get a little bit closer for footage with it, which is probably enough to identify things. But a lot of the stuff I won't get a full ID until I get to work and get on a good quality microscope to identify them.
Well, I think I saw the video, spoiler alert, and I thought the images were pretty good. So what I'm going to do now, and try to do now, is we'll start the second half of the video where you're showing us the individual species that you found. And Joel, I'm going to hand you the remote control. You should see a little instruction on your screen that says take remote control, and then you can use that to pause.
Oh, great.
And you should be able to use your own mouse to point out things that you want us to see.
Okay, cool.
We think. So folks watching, we're going to ask you to let us know. Hopefully you'll be able to hear everything just fine. And hopefully you will also be able to, see Joel's cursor. Okay, are we ready? I'll press play. Joel, do you see that little invitation to take the mouse?
Yes, I can control your screen, it says.
Okay, I'm going to press play, and then down, do you see the controls at the bottom to pause and
yes,
all that good stuff? Okay, here we go.
So this is, just as I pin stuff up, you see the little labels at the top with the numbers? That just shows you like what day and where it was from. And then And later on, I'll put individual labels on each one of these that'll say where I caught it and what day. But if you kind of look at this, you can see, wait, oh, there it pauses. If you see, I'll just take that back a little bit and show you. There you go. There's a typical example that each of these things are on a tiny pin. And some of them will go right through the body if it's something large. Some of these that look really tiny, and they are tiny, they will actually be glued to the side of the pin because they're so small. If you tried to put a pin through them, there'd be nothing left.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
I didn't know that. And Joe, all of these are from your yard only. And about how many different species are we seeing here?
ooh, this would probably be at least 100 species in here, I would say, which is not, it seems like a lot for a yard. I've had friends that did this for years that sort of set up a whole series of traps and would sample all through the year and make it a point to try to pin everything. And there's people that in regular, city yards in places like Ottawa or Toronto or Vancouver have gotten thousands of species over the years in their yard. It's not unusual once you take the time to actually identify each one of them and pin them. 100 species here isn't actually that high.
Wow.
Okay, we'll keep looking through some of these. So you can see that this is quite a bit of variety that you can see, and sizes too. And then we'll look at some of them close up. And like I was saying, these are the shots I got with my phone with the macro lens. So I just took these out one by one, put them in with a bit of light, and then was able to sort of pan through so that you can see them. And this is the level of detail that you need to identify this to species. So this you can tell is a carabid beetle because you can see the shape of the abdomen on it and the wing cases, which you call elytra. And this is enough detail that you need. And you can see the cool bulbous eyes and mouth parts. So this is pretty much what I'd see if I was looking under a scope at work. And this is a tachinid fly, which can be quite fuzzy, and they're parasites usually of moths and butterflies. A tiger beetle. Tiger beetles are particularly neat because they're pretty strong predators when you get around sandy soil. So you can see those big, sharp mouth parts. They'll pretty much catch and grab anything they can and eat it. This one I thought was neat. I saw it on a tree, and I thought, okay, there's a wasp, I'll grab it. Until you get it into the net and you realize that it's actually a fly. This is a really good wasp mimic, and flying by you would never think it was a fly until it landed and you realize it's only got the two wings and the antennae are much smaller than you'd see in a bee or a wasp. So this is just a fly doing a really good wasp imitation.
Joel, why would a fly want to imitate a wasp?
I was thinking about this, and I think it's a case, because also the other things you kind of think about when you're going on these walks and seeing things is I'm picturing a bird, some little bird that's just hatched out this year that goes to grab something, grabs a wasp, and gets stung. The next time it sees something that kind of looks like a wasp, it'll probably keep flying. So there's a whole bunch of insects that's enough. If it just looks enough like a wasp that a bird will pass by it once, that's a good enough reason to look that way. And then for thousands of years, they will look like that. And so you end up with beetles and a whole bunch of things that end up kind of looking like wasps.
Thank you.
So this is a pretty good mimic for that one. And you can see the face on it. It's got this whole elongated face and gigantic eyes.
Is that pollen around its neck?
And it would have pollen. Like, it's probably still a very good pollinator. So flies are surprisingly, where this really is a bee. Bees and wasps, the subtle difference is you can see here, it's pretty hairy on the body. That's how you can tell it's a bee instead of a wasp. So this is just a little bee that happens to have very long mouth parts. But you can see the difference here. They have huge antennae. There's not many flies that have antennae like that. This is a fly, yellow and fuzzy and pretty. Pretty until I tell you the name. This is a yellow dung fly. That's almost always found on dung. Real pretty until you know where they grow up, I guess. And a bee fly. This is another weird form of mimicry because it really only looks like a bumblebee from the back half. So when it's buzzing around, when it lands, it kind of looks like the back half of a bumblebee, But when you look from the front, I don't think you'd ever confuse that. It's got a very strange head with a fuzzy face and long mouth parts. And these are pretty common about now, another week or so, and you probably won't see them flying around, but these are really common. This is the common bee fly, and they're also tend to fly around and look for bees because they'll lay their eggs inside of ground nesting bee holes.
Wow. Is that for protection?
Because then their eggs will hatch, and then they'll either eat the pollen that was set aside for those bee larvae, or they'll just eat the bee larvae themselves.
Oh, wow.
So they kind of look like bees, and they also sort of eat bees, I guess you could say. And Bombilius major is the name. I kind of like that name. Here's a plant hopper just to give you a sense of something that has a totally different shape. Also an insect, but not fuzzy, just pointed like a little bullet. Here's another neat syrphid fly. And these ones tend to be very good pollinators, Kim. Like you pointed out before, the fuzz on it is really efficient at picking up pollen. So these will buzz around on flowers too, and they'll buzz from one flower to the next, and then boom, everything gets pollinated. So when you see these buzzing around on your tomatoes or your peppers or something, be very thankful, because without these things just bopping from flower to flower, you wouldn't get any fruit. So, and once again, the big eyes. When you ever see big eyes like that, it's usually a male. Insect males usually have much bigger eyes. And this is your standard bee. I kind of like putting this one in here because it's a bee, but it's not bee colors. This one is metallic and green, and a ladybug, because ladybugs are easy to recognize. And this one's pretty, very small. That one's a lot harder to pin when they're that tiny.
Fantastic. Oh, it's still playing in my audio here. Just a second. So did you have any surprises, Joel?
Surprises. Well, some of them, I got to tell you, the wasp and the bumblebee, the wasp mimic, that one got me. I didn't know until it was in the net. I saw that on a tree and I caught it, and I thought, ugh, I don't normally collect too many wasps because, I don't know. I just have a soft spot for flies. So it's always kind of neat when you catch something that you think is a wasp and it turns out to be a fly. It's like a bonus.
Mm-hmm. A couple questions here. The first question from Patricia: are you able to catch insects all year round in Victoria, or only in the spring or say fall?
I had a little test for that because I moved from Ontario, where definitely you can't well, even then in the winter, it's really, really hard to find anything. So here I tested myself and I said, fine, can I catch something every month of the year? And yes, I have. There's never been a month that I couldn't find something. And the difference here is some places, like on a beach, for example, in January, there's actually quite a bit. And the forest is never totally frozen over. So even if you were to go in the forest and it's kind of cold, if you were to dig into the soil, you'd find a lot of stuff crawling around. So yes, that's one of the great things I liked about moving out here to Vancouver Island, is that yes, it's year round. And the difference now is you'll just start to see a few different things and a lot more once it gets warmer.
Great. Leanne is watching, our colleague from the museum. She's watching on Facebook, and she's asking, are daddy long legs spiders?
No, they're really closely related to spiders. They're arachnids, but it's a different order. And if you look at the body arrangement, it's a slightly different. And daddy longlegs don't have the web spinning. So, and they still have 8 legs, and they still have a head kind of like a spider, but they're not spiders. Although this question came up not too long ago in England, someone probably would have laughed at that question, because in England, daddy longlegs are what they call crane flies. So if you see the big long-legged flies flying around, that's what they call a daddy longlegs. So I got in this Twitter question with a friend of mine in England, and we were talking about daddy longlegs, and we were not talking about the same thing. It was very confusing.
A good example of why scientific names are important.
It helps.
So you said you had these traps out on a pretty sunny days last week, a nice run of sun, so that's great. But I'm wondering, and I was thinking about this today because we had a burst, or yesterday because we had a burst of rain. What do insects do in the rain?
It's funny, I was thinking about this, and if you ever were to get good footage, like those close-up shots I had of something pinned, it'd be great to be able to get close-up shots of that, of something living. because imagine the size of a water droplet. A
Mhm.
raindrop, when you're only half a centimeter long, no, that's going to knock you right off of anything you're standing on, which I think most of the time things get knocked down. So if it rains, everything kind of ends up down on the ground, and then they wait till they dry out and they crawl back up. A lot of insects, if you watch, will be on the underneath of a leaf. So when it's kind of raining or it's just rain, if you look underneath leaves, you'll see them all kind of sitting there waiting. So they figure it out because it's, like enough not to run through traffic, they know enough to get out of the rain.
So taking shelter.
Yes.
Of the insects you came across in your yard, Joel, were there any invasive species or non-native species, or are most of these things native to British Columbia?
Well, it's tough to say, and that's one of the things people say, well, in your yard or in a city, there are definitely more introduced things. And there's a whole bunch of words people will use, and none of them are the wrong word, but they have slightly different meanings. Like introduced means it probably didn't evolve here and it has showed up here in the last, 150, 200 years. Invasive is when you start to think, okay, it's new here and it's a problem because it's eating cherries, or it's destroying other species like the invasive wall lizards because they might be, eating other native lizards. Then you also get anthropogenic, which is a word just meaning things that do better around people, which might not be introduced. Cockroaches in your house are definitely anthropogenic because they can't live not in a house. So those are introduced and anthropogenic. And definitely in your yard, you're going to see all three of those things. You're going to see introduced things, you're going to see invasive, not exclusively though. And there's some things that just happen to live a lot of places in the world. That dung fly I told you about, that you showed, the yellow fuzzy one, that lives all over North America and all over Europe and all across Russia. I don't know if it was introduced someplace. I just think it happens to live everywhere.
I was surprised by the dung fly. The shape of it was very aerodynamic. As you mentioned, it kind of looked like a bullet. I suppose what you're going to find in your yard, though, depends on what you've planted in your yard. And I imagine with somewhere that has such a microclimates like Victoria does, it could be quite different from where you are to where I am in Esquimalt. What part of town are you in, Joel?
Saanich.
In Saanich. Okay, so we're not so far apart, but.
And yes, you're definitely going to have difference from yard to yard. And some people work really hard at it. Like they want to plant a lot of flowers that sometimes will attract insects to live there, but also will just kind of keep the ones that are there and support them. Some people want to do that with more plants that are native to the area, like put in things like Oregon grape and plants that are here, because they might, the idea is they might be more useful to native insects. So that's definitely a factor. But I see, somebody in the comments saying that, it also depends on what is in the yards around you. If your yard happens to be the worst on the block because there's nothing in it or it's all paved, doesn't mean there's not going to be insects. If you're surrounded by really, bushy gardens and lots of native plants, then you'll still get insects in your yard too. So what plants are there will support them, but you'd be surprised at how much will fly through no matter what the condition of your yard is.
Great. And you said you are a fly guy. And what is it about flies that made you fall in love with them? I know that's anthropomorphizing it a little bit. I'm not saying you love flies, but what is it about flies that made you go?
Love, but it's a very strong shared relationship. I would say it was definitely a case, and usually find this most people that have a specialty, it's because that's the one they were handed. When you work on it, like you said, our poll question was a good one. There's 35,000 species of insects in BC. Not many people would be asked to say, okay, study all of them at the same time. It's like, here's your little piece of the wedge, do as much work as you can on it and tell people about it. So I got handed flies early on. That being said, I stuck with them because I like the variety. You look under the scope and you're like, oh, the flies are all different shapes. And then you read about what they do, and some of them are pollinators and some of them are predators, and some of them, there's flies that lay their eggs in oil slicks, like the La Brea tar pits, which is a big pile of raw oil in Los Angeles, has a species that only lives in it. It's amazing. That's a fly that lives in oil. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. There, as you said, the variety is there. Well, I really appreciated you showing us all those different examples, and my takeaway for me is about the antenna on bees being longer and maybe more distinct than it would be on a fly that's maybe mimicking a bee or a wasp. I think that's a neat thing to
Although,
look out for. Oh no, there's always an exception.
although I had a friend that worked on mimicry, and she noticed that there were some flies that I guess noticed this difference. So they would start to hold their legs in front of their head to look like antenna.
Oh my
And she
gosh,
started
wow.
to see all these photographs that people had taken of why are they always holding their legs like that? And you realize it's to look like antenna. So they look even more like it, even if they can't grow bigger antenna.
Oh, that's very cool. You mentioned mimicry, and it made me think of biomimicry, which is where engineers maybe look to nature to get ideas for new technology or to make things better. Can you think of any, this is kind of out of the blue, but can you think of any examples where that's been done with insects or flies in particular?
I know that some of the early drone technology was based around things like dragonfly wings and the idea of having like kind of four pivoting wings and how they work in order to give stability. So insect flight has been a really good model for how things work because insects are really
Mm.
efficient flyers. It doesn't take as much energy as you would think. And then there's other things like interesting breathing. Like insects don't really have circulation. They just basically have lungs that go through their whole body and hits every cell.
Hmm.
So there's been that odd idea as well. And then some of it is just the chemical tolerance that why can insects tolerate, unbelievably bizarre environments? And sometimes there's chemical features in it. There are insects that have hemoglobin as well. They don't have blood, but they live in low oxygen places. So they have hemoglobin exactly the same as humans, just so that they can carry oxygen better.
Wow, I can see why you're fascinated. There's,
Oh,
there's so
we're
much
into it.
variety and adaption. That's really neat. Joel, thank you so much for setting up those traps last week and for collecting them and then pinning us and showing us what's there. Is this something that's going to just be part of your own personal collection, or might it have a future in the museum's collection?
All of these go to the museum. I don't keep a personal collection, partly because it's my job. It's my job to bring it in. Plus, I also see there's a lot more value in bringing it in because as much as I think it's neat and I'll look at the flies right away, I know a couple of those bees and a couple of those beetles, I'll think it's neat and I would just put it away. But if I bring it into the museum, I'll have colleagues that know a lot more about beetles and bees. They'll identify it and put a species name on it. And they might say, oh, wait a minute, Joel, we've never seen this in Victoria before. This is a big deal. So it's only when you share all of those specimens and put them in a museum collection, especially a collection like ours, which is publicly available. Like any researchers or public that's interested in it can talk to us and we can set it up to look at certain groups. So that's why I don't keep specimens here. And once we're able to work at the collection again, those will all go in there and be available for people to look at.
Oh, that's great. It's a silver lining of working from home is to be able to get a collection like this, which you may not have normally been able to. You mentioned colleagues and associates. How many different folks work in the, it's a pretty busy lab. Whenever I walk by there, I see lots of people buzzing around,
Well,
but I know it includes volunteers and others, but how many people are working there when they're able to?
there's two of us that are full-time staff. I'm the curator and Claudia Copley is the collection manager. So we're there all the time working and we have research projects and lots of things to do. But we have a lot of volunteers that are interested in helping out and they have their own love, to use that word again, of, butterflies or flies or beetles, and they'll come in when they have time to work on things. We do have research associates, which are people maybe from universities or government labs that'll come in once in a while, maybe once a month or every couple of weeks to look through our collection and work on things. So there's never a day when things are back to normal that there aren't at least 3 or 4 people in there going through the drawers and preparing specimens and identifying things. That's a normal day, which is great. I love having all those people looking at insects.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us today and for your questions and for just making us part of your day. RBCM at Home takes place every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. You can join us on next Tuesday with the curator of botany, Dr. Ken Marr, when he talks about the process of plant domestication and how people have changed plants over the years. If you have young people in your lives, let them know about RBCM at Home on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. These sessions feature a museum educator and a museum staff member sharing activities you can do at home. Also on Wednesday, we have RBCM outside at 2 p.m. Links for all these programs are on our website. And when technology is with us, we do record all these programs. Those go onto our YouTube playlist. So if you missed one or you wanted to see it again or share it with others, you can find them there. Again, thank you for including us in some of your screen time, and keep taking care of yourselves and one another. Thank you. Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, folks.